Rejection does not always mean that a person feels nothing. Sometimes, psychologically, rejection can function as a protective wall. When emotional closeness begins to feel overwhelming, an avoidant person may experience intimacy not simply as affection, but as a threat to independence, control, or emotional safety. The closer the connection becomes, the more exposed they may feel. And exposure can activate fears they have learned to manage by creating distance. From a Jungian perspective, this can be understood as a conflict between conscious intention and unconscious emotion. Consciously, the person may think, "I need to get away from this," but underneath that decision may exist vulnerability, longing, fear, or unresolved emotional material that they have not fully confronted. The rejection becomes a way of restoring psychological distance. This is why chasing after rejection can sometimes make the situation worse. Every attempt to convince, persuade, or demand reassurance may increase the sense that their emotional freedom is being threatened. Their defensive system becomes stronger, and they retreat further. But stepping back does not guarantee that they will return, and rejection should never be treated as a secret promise of love. The healthier response is to respect their decision while maintaining your own dignity. When the pressure disappears, they are left with their own thoughts and emotions, rather than constantly reacting to someone else's pursuit. The important lesson is not how to make an avoidant come back. It is understanding that another person's defenses are not a measurement of your worth. Sometimes distance reveals what closeness was preventing them from consciously examining. When an avoidant person rejects you, one thing they may value more than they openly express is emotional steadiness. This does not mean they secretly expect you to wait forever or prove your love by remaining available. Rather, they may feel safer when your response to rejection is calm, respectful, and self-contained. Intense reactions can confirm an unconscious belief that closeness always brings emotional pressure, conflict, or overwhelming expectations. From a Jungian perspective, emotional grounding represents the ability to remain connected to yourself, even when another person creates distance. If you respond to rejection by begging, repeatedly messaging, demanding explanations, or trying to change their decision, you may unintentionally strengthen the very defense that caused them to withdraw. Their psychological system receives the message that distance is necessary for protection. But when you step back without hostility, something different happens. You communicate that you can experience disappointment without losing yourself. You can care without becoming dependent. You can respect another person's boundary without abandoning your own emotional needs. This kind of response may also challenge unconscious expectations. Perhaps they expect anger after rejection. Perhaps they expect pursuit. Perhaps they expect emotional chaos. When none of these things occur, they are left with a quieter psychological experience. They have space to process what happened without constantly defending themselves. However, emotional grounding should never become a performance designed to trigger regret. If you act calm only because you hope they will come running back, you remain psychologically attached to their reaction. The deeper lesson is to become emotionally centered for your own sake. Their response belongs to them. Your peace belongs to you. When you stop pursuing someone after they reject you, the silence that follows can create a psychological space that did not exist before. This does not mean silence is a secret weapon or a guaranteed way to make an avoidant person miss you. Its deeper significance is that it removes the constant emotional stimulation surrounding the relationship. When communication is continuous, both people can become focused on reactions rather than reflection. One person reaches out, the other pulls away. Another message arrives, another explanation follows, and the emotional cycle continues. There is very little room for either person to understand what they actually feel because they are constantly responding to what the other person is doing. From a Jungian perspective, psychological space can allow unconscious material to become more noticeable. When external distractions become quiet, thoughts and emotions that were previously pushed aside may rise into awareness. An avoidant person may begin remembering specific moments, conversations, emotional experiences, or qualities of the connection that were easier to ignore while actively creating distance. This does not automatically mean they will return. They may still decide that distance is what they need. The important point is that silence allows their decision to exist without continuous pressure from you. At the same time, silence gives you psychological space as well. You begin noticing how much energy you were investing in their responses. You may discover that your attention had become centered around waiting, interpreting, and hoping. True distance, therefore, serves both people. It allows the other person to confront their own emotions while giving you an opportunity to return your attention to your own life, identity, and emotional stability. When an avoidant person rejects emotional closeness, respecting the boundary may be one of the most important things you can do. This does not mean they secretly want you to disappear forever, or that respecting their decision will automatically make them return. It means that emotional safety often depends on having the freedom to choose distance without being pressured into changing that decision. From a Jungian perspective, a person's defenses can become stronger when they feel psychologically invaded. If someone says they need space, and the response is repeated messages, emotional arguments, persuasion, or demands for reassurance, the unconscious mind may interpret that behavior as confirmation that closeness means losing control. The person may retreat even further, not necessarily because they feel nothing, but because their protective system has become activated. Respecting the boundary creates a completely different psychological environment. You communicate that their decision has been heard. You are not trying to force emotional access. You are allowing them to experience their own thoughts without constantly defending themselves against another person's expectations. Interestingly, this can also reveal something about the relationship that pressure often hides. When you stop trying to control the outcome, both people have an opportunity to observe what remains naturally. If they genuinely miss the connection, that feeling has room to emerge on its own. If they do not, you receive clarity without having to exhaust yourself searching for it. The deeper lesson is that respect should never be used as manipulation. Do not give someone space simply because you expect them to come back. Give space because their boundary matters, and your dignity matters too. Real emotional maturity means understanding that love cannot be forced, and neither person should have to surrender their freedom to prove that they care. When someone has become accustomed to your constant presence, they may not fully recognize the emotional significance of that presence while it is always available. This does not mean you should deliberately disappear to make an avoidant person panic or chase you. The deeper psychological idea is that distance can sometimes make familiar experiences more noticeable because the mind no longer receives them continuously. When you are always available, conversations, support, attention, and affection can become part of the person's psychological background. They may appreciate these things without consciously examining how much they matter. But when contact naturally decreases after rejection, the ordinary patterns of connection are interrupted. Suddenly, the mind has fewer external distractions and more opportunity to remember what previously existed. From a Jungian perspective, this can create awareness through contrast. The psyche often recognizes something more clearly when its opposite appears. Presence becomes more noticeable through absence. Emotional warmth becomes easier to recognize when the usual source of that warmth is no longer immediately accessible. An avoidant person may begin remembering small details that seemed insignificant before. They may think about conversations, moments of comfort, laughter, understanding, or emotional familiarity. These memories can surface because the mind is attempting to make sense of a changed emotional environment. However, this does not guarantee that absence will create romantic longing. People can miss someone and still choose distance. That distinction is important because your goal should never be to manufacture scarcity. The healthiest form of absence is simply living your life again. Stop making yourself permanently available to someone who has chosen distance. Reconnect with your interests, friendships, ambitions, and identity. When your attention returns to yourself, your absence becomes a natural consequence rather than a calculated strategy. And sometimes, that natural distance reveals the value of a connection far more clearly than constant pursuit ever could. Avoidance can sometimes be understood as a psychological attempt to protect the conscious mind from an internal conflict that feels difficult to resolve. A person may consciously believe that distance is necessary, while another part of their emotional world may still experience attachment, curiosity, longing, fear, or vulnerability. These opposing impulses can exist at the same time without the person fully understanding why. From a Jungian perspective, the unconscious does not simply disappear because the conscious mind refuses to acknowledge something. What is pushed away can continue influencing thoughts, emotions, dreams, memories, and behavior. An avoidant response can therefore become a form of psychological protection. By creating distance, the person temporarily reduces the emotional intensity that comes with intimacy. Imagine someone beginning to feel deeply connected to another person. At first, the connection feels exciting and meaningful. But as emotional closeness increases, unconscious fears may also become activated. The person may suddenly feel exposed, dependent, trapped, or afraid of eventual rejection. Instead of consciously exploring these feelings, they create distance. The rejection then provides immediate relief because the emotional tension decreases. Yet relief does not necessarily mean the underlying conflict has disappeared. Once the external situation becomes quiet, the person may still encounter the emotions they were attempting to escape. They may wonder why certain memories keep returning or why someone remains psychologically significant despite their decision to withdraw. This is why chasing them is rarely helpful. Constant pursuit keeps their defensive system occupied with protecting itself. Space gives them an opportunity to encounter their own inner contradiction without external pressure. But this should never be interpreted as proof that hidden love exists. The healthier understanding is that emotional complexity can exist without producing a relationship. Your responsibility is not to solve another person's unconscious conflict, but to remain conscious of your own. When someone withdraws emotionally, their reaction to that withdrawal can become psychologically important. An avoidant person may already associate closeness with pressure, conflict, disappointment, or emotional demands. If rejection is followed by anger, humiliation, repeated accusations, or attempts to make them feel guilty, it can reinforce the belief that emotional intimacy is unsafe. From a Jungian perspective, people often develop protective patterns from earlier emotional experiences. When those patterns become activated, the conscious mind may look for evidence that its defenses are justified. If someone creates distance and the response becomes hostile, the person may unconsciously think, "This is exactly why I needed to protect myself." Their withdrawal then feels psychologically necessary. This does not mean you should suppress legitimate emotions. Feeling hurt after rejection is completely human. The important distinction is between experiencing your pain and using that pain to punish another person. You can be disappointed without becoming cruel. You can feel abandoned without trying to make someone suffer for leaving. A calm response can interrupt the cycle. Instead of escalating the situation, you acknowledge what happened and allow the other person to own their decision.
This removes the emotional battle that often keeps both people trapped in the same pattern.
There is also something powerful about refusing to turn rejection into revenge. When you do not punish someone for protecting their emotional boundaries, you demonstrate psychological maturity. You are saying, in effect, I may not agree with your decision, but I will not destroy myself or you because of it. Yet this should not mean tolerating disrespect or remaining available indefinitely. Boundaries work both ways. If someone chooses distance, you can respect that choice while choosing distance for yourself as well. The goal is not to make them feel safe enough to return. The goal is to respond without abandoning your own dignity. After rejection, an avoidant person may become curious about what happens next, especially if the connection carried emotional significance. This does not necessarily mean they are secretly planning to return or constantly monitoring everything you do. Rather, human beings naturally pay attention to changes in relationships, and an avoidant person may notice whether the other person responds with pursuit, anger, silence, acceptance, or emotional stability. From a Jungian perspective, behavior after rejection can reveal psychological patterns more clearly than words alone. If someone expects emotional pressure after creating distance, they may anticipate repeated messages, demands for explanations, or attempts to restore closeness immediately. When that expected reaction does not occur, the psychological pattern is interrupted. They may begin wondering why the usual cycle has stopped. Why is there no argument? Why is there no attempt to convince them? Why has the emotional pressure disappeared? These questions can create curiosity because the person is suddenly experiencing something different from what they expected. This is not about performing indifference. If you deliberately post things to provoke jealousy or make yourself look unavailable, you are still emotionally organizing your behavior around their reaction. That is not genuine detachment. Real emotional independence looks different. You accept the rejection, stop pursuing, and return your attention to your own life. You allow your actions to communicate that your identity does not depend on whether another person chooses you. If they notice this change, they may gain a different understanding of you. They may recognize that connection with you does not necessarily mean emotional pressure or loss of freedom. They may also become more aware of their own feelings because you are no longer constantly directing their attention toward the relationship. But whatever they observe remains their responsibility. You cannot control what they conclude, whether they miss you or whether they return. Your responsibility is simpler. Respond to rejection with self-respect, emotional maturity, and enough distance to let both people see reality clearly. One of the deepest ideas in Jungian psychology is individuation, the process of becoming more conscious of who you are beyond the expectations, fears, and emotional demands of other people. After rejection, this becomes especially important because the mind can easily become obsessed with another person's decision. You may start wondering what you did wrong, what they are thinking, whether they miss you, or what you could do to change their mind. Individuation asks you to turn that attention inward. Instead of making another person's feelings the center of your psychological world, you begin reconnecting with your own identity. You remember that you existed before this relationship, and you will continue existing regardless of its outcome. Your ambitions, friendships, values, interests, and personal growth do not need to disappear simply because someone has chosen distance. Jung believed that psychological development requires integrating different parts of ourselves, including the parts we might prefer to ignore. Rejection can therefore expose hidden beliefs such as, I am only valuable if someone chooses me, or if this person leaves, I have lost something essential about myself. These beliefs deserve examination rather than automatic acceptance. The avoidant person's decision can become a mirror, showing you where you may have unconsciously attached your sense of worth to external validation. Once you recognize that pattern, you can begin reclaiming that emotional authority. This does not mean becoming cold or pretending not to care. Individuation allows you to care without losing yourself. You can acknowledge love, disappointment, longing, and sadness while still maintaining your own center. The goal is not to become emotionally independent so someone else will notice your strength. The goal is to become psychologically whole, whether they notice it or not. When you stop asking, "How can I make them choose me?" and begin asking, "Who am I becoming through this experience?" rejection becomes less of an ending and more of an invitation to understand yourself. After rejection, it can be tempting to turn distance into a strategy. You may think, if I stop contacting them, they will miss me, or if I become unavailable, they will finally realize what they lost. But this keeps your attention psychologically attached to the other person. Even when you appear distant, your behavior is still being controlled by the hope of producing a reaction. A Jungian approach asks for something deeper. Instead of manipulating another person's emotions, become conscious of your own motivations. Why are you stepping back? Is it because you want to protect your dignity and emotional health, or because you are secretly waiting for them to chase you? That distinction matters. Manipulation attempts to control another person's psychological state. Emotional maturity accepts that you cannot control what another person feels, realizes, or chooses. You can communicate honestly, respect boundaries, and then allow the other person to make their own decisions. This is particularly important with avoidant behavior because attempts to control or pressure the relationship can intensify defensiveness. If someone already associates closeness with emotional demands, strategic pressure may only strengthen their desire for distance. The stronger response is therefore surprisingly simple. Stop trying to engineer an outcome. Stop monitoring every online activity. Stop posting things designed to provoke jealousy. Stop calculating how long you should remain silent. Stop treating every small behavior as evidence of hidden feelings. Instead, use the distance to rebuild your own psychological center. Return to your routines, relationships, ambitions, and personal interests. Let your life become meaningful without needing another person's reaction to validate it. If they eventually reflect on the connection, that reflection belongs to them. If they never do, your growth still remains valuable. Real power is not making someone miss you. Real power is reaching the point where you no longer need to manipulate someone into recognizing your worth. One of the hardest truths after rejection is that another person's realization cannot be forced. You can explain your feelings perfectly, remind them of every meaningful moment, or show them how deeply you cared. But none of these things can create genuine emotional awareness if they are not ready to experience it themselves. From a Jungian perspective, real psychological insight must emerge from within. The conscious mind cannot simply be ordered to understand what the unconscious has not yet integrated. A person may intellectually know that a connection mattered while emotionally resisting what that knowledge means. They may understand your value and still remain afraid of intimacy. They may miss you and still choose distance. These contradictions can exist simultaneously. This is why repeated attempts to convince someone often become exhausting. The more you try to produce their realization, the more you take responsibility for an emotional process that belongs to them. You begin analyzing every message, waiting for signs, interpreting silence, and wondering what you should do next. But their inner world is not your responsibility. If they need to understand why they withdrew, they must confront that question themselves. If they need to recognize the importance of the connection, that recognition must develop naturally. And if they never reach that realization, you cannot make it happen through persistence. This does not mean you should become cold or emotionally unavailable yourself. It means accepting the limits of your influence. You can express yourself honestly. You can communicate your needs. You can respect their boundaries. After that, there comes a point where the healthiest action is to release control. Sometimes distance gives a person the opportunity to think without pressure. Sometimes it changes nothing. Both possibilities must be accepted. Your healing begins when you stop making your peace dependent on someone else's awakening. Their realization belongs to their journey. Your realization belongs to yours. In Jungian psychology, projection occurs when we unconsciously place parts of our own emotional world onto another person. After rejection, this can become especially powerful because the mind desperately wants an explanation. We may begin imagining what the other person feels, what they secretly want, or what their behavior must mean. Sometimes we become more attached to the story we created about them than to the reality of what they actually communicated. You may believe, for example, that their rejection is secretly hiding intense love. You may interpret distance as proof that they are afraid of their feelings. But these interpretations can become projections when there is not enough evidence to support them. The unconscious mind fills uncertainty with a narrative that protects us from the pain of accepting rejection. Jung would encourage us to ask a more difficult question. What am I placing onto this person that actually belongs to me? Perhaps you are projecting your need to be chosen. Perhaps you are placing your hope for emotional security onto someone who cannot provide it. Perhaps their attention has become symbolic of your own worth. When this happens, the relationship becomes psychologically larger than the actual person. They become a screen onto which your fears, fantasies, hopes, and unresolved needs are projected. The purpose of becoming conscious is not to destroy your feelings. It is to separate reality from imagination. You can acknowledge that you care while also accepting what you genuinely know. They rejected you. That fact deserves respect. Everything beyond that requires caution. Maybe they have complicated feelings. Maybe they do not. Maybe they will eventually understand the connection. Maybe they will not. You do not need to solve that mystery to reclaim yourself. The deeper transformation occurs when you stop asking what their behavior says about your worth and begin asking what your emotional reaction is trying to teach you about yourself. Sometimes, the person we desperately want to understand is ultimately the mirror through which we are being asked to understand ourselves.